All right, welcome everybody here to day two of the WPT Australia main event. I'm sitting here with Didier Guerin, very familiar face to many of you out there. Didier, unfortunately, you just busted, didn't go your way today.
No, it was a pretty standard hand. I had an open-ended straight draw. He had an overpair. These things happened. I started the day with about 25 big blinds, so it was always going to go in a little bit liberally, and I was fine with that. It happens.
And Rodney, I know you've been playing quite a few events here this week, and I'm sure you'll be playing a couple more the next few days. How have you been running so far?
Running okay, playing okay. Can't complain too much. I think I'm looking forward to the mini main now today. There's the high roller satellite and the high roller tomorrow, the 10K. And then I think we end with there's a 1K and the 550 finale. But I've been playing everything. I played the 20K for the second time in my life. That's the biggest buy-in I've ever played. And I was pretty happy with how I felt in play. Felt like a pretty good field, honestly. And even though there's always going to be crushes and really good players. One of my best friends came second, actually, Chris Strand. So congrats to him. But I felt pretty comfortable. And I guess some days when you play those, you question yourself. You always want to make sure you're playing hands right. And I'm pretty studious about running them and stuff like that. And everything kind of worked out for the most part. Definitely some tricky spots, but I think that was probably the highlight per se so far.
I mean, that's an interesting question. I've always wondered, speaking to players who, move up to these higher stakes, I mean, does the mindset change, or are you just trying to go through the same processes each time?
I think everyone's different, but for myself personally, I think the endurance just builds up to a sense of senselessness, I suppose. You don't really feel much if you haven't done the wrong thing, because you can't control so much of the variance in this game, so you can only focus on what you do, and for the most part I've been doing what I do better than I usually do, and I think if I keep doing that, then the results will come. I'm mainly getting into cash games with antes, so coming into live tournaments a bit more so in the last 2 years, since the pandemic was kind of ended and we started opening up again. Has been a bit of an experience, but I really enjoy it. I think having the changing stack sizes in tournaments is super exciting, and that's why we're all here.
So do you consider yourself to be a cash player first and foremost? And okay, so then when you transition between it, so I mean, what's the biggest challenge you find when you transition over to tournaments?
Yeah, absolutely. So just always having at least 100 big blinds in a cash game. It's more of a turn and river game, lots of hand reading and stuff like that. That's sort of my favorite thing, getting to rivers and sort of putting people to the test. In tournaments, you're always going to have far less on average, unless you're the chip leader in the tournament. We're looking at probably 30 or 40 big blind averages in this, and I would say the challenge is actually just changing between them. The strategy at 20 big blinds compared to 40 big blinds is very different. Knowing what to jam, knowing that some hands can be a jam at 30 big blinds can be a little bit foreign. Technically it operates quite differently, and we're seeing more flops, much more pre-flop decisions, and in a sense I guess it's simpler but a little bit more painful when it happens so often.
Now I know you spent the Australian winter, the Vegas summer over there in Vegas.
Yeah.
How was your experience over there?
I love being back for the first time since I think 2017 or 2018. My best friend Adrian came second in the main event, obviously, to Espen the year before, and that was arguably the most exciting experience for I think him and many of his closest friends. I was standing on the couch watching that, so to be able to get over a year later after so long was just really exciting. I really just hopped into the tournaments. I usually would have played more cash games. I was like, I'm here, I'm just going to go for the bracelet, playing everything from the 440 Colossus to the 10K main event or 10K at the Wynn, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Of course, Adrian Attenborough made Jack 4 famous, I think, and he's been a bit reclusive in the year since, but I think you dragged him out for the teams, didn't you?
Well, it's a funny story, actually, because the teams event has changed its structure, so there's no breaks anymore. It's just an Ironman, and I guess the idea is you swap with your partner, but Adrian, being busy and playing, high stakes cash, was like, all right, Dids, let me know if we make the final table. So I was sitting there with no breaks for 7 or 8 hours. But generally speaking, he didn't play too much this series. He's had other stuff on.
I know you had a bit of an encounter with the great Daniel Negreanu over there as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the highlights, if not the highlight. I suppose I've had a lot of experience playing with all of like the big name pros, and there's always a different experience. Like when you're playing with Phil Hellmuth, you're probably going to get verbally abused or something like that, and it's not like that with Daniel at all. He's always making a real huge conscious effort to make everyone at the table, regardless of their poker ability, to feel very included, and I think it makes the day go by much faster when someone's really entertaining like that. And on top of being super entertaining, he's clearly a really nice guy. He included me in his vlog after I kind of won a lot of hands against him, and then the one hand that made it on the vlog was him crushing me. So some creative editing there, Daniel, but overall just a really nice guy. We got seated in the online event together, and I sent him a message on Twitter after he followed me. I said, "That's me on your left," and he said, "You're Graham Putt," which is my online name everywhere. So I'll probably frame that somewhere. I told Putty it's APL, and he had a good laugh.
Are you planning to head over to Vegas in December for WPT?
Yeah, I've already booked my room and my ticket over. Just got to get the ticket back. And yeah, I'll be there regardless.
And just lastly, Didier, I mean, obviously here, a big series here, and WPT, big series, you were there in Vegas. I mean, what is it about these really big festivals that you enjoy most?
Well, WPT specifically, I think they just run their events so well. Like, no offense to the World Series of Poker, but I think it's a difficult job when you're subcontracting out dealers just to come in for the series, because you have a plethora of really inexperienced dealers. Just coming back anywhere in Australia, you'll find actually the quality of dealing anywhere is much better. WPT in particular have just great rules, great staff. I'll follow Danny McDonough anywhere. He is just the best TD, and I love seeing Lynn and Ashley and all of the WPT staff here just really help you with anything. If anything goes wrong, they're just the first port of call, and I love their structures. They're always working really hard to improve them. I already spoke to Danny about the time banks are going to stop resetting every day, and they'll actually add so that people who are not using them are actually rewarded at final tables, and I love that sort of incentiveness to keep improving the structures. I don't think you find that with most operators.
Well, look forward to seeing you in Vegas, Didier, and all the best for the rest of the series.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Cheers.